Has it? Oh, I think I'm muted. Hang on a second. How's it going? This is Luke from Leicester City Down Under. Just going to bring everyone in here. We've got a quarter season review. Lots to be happy and positive about. Let me just get everyone in. Got Ant, Neil, and here we go. Lads, how are we all?
All good.
Am I muted?
No.
No, you're all good,
perfect.
mate.
No, Luke, we can't hear a word you're saying, mate.
Yeah.
You're on mute.
All right, guys. Plenty to talk about. Plenty to be really excited about. I know it's only quarter of the season, but I think after what we've been through, it's kind of a little bit all right to smell the roses, just a tiny little bit.
Yeah.
I think
we are feasting on the terrific dinner that Enzo has served up at the King Power. We were famished after that Rodgers famine that he gave us, and we are loving what we're seeing.
Absolutely. And we talked about this before, just off air, but I wanted to pull a picture up for everyone, but for all of my 0 viewers right now. But the first thing that I wanted to talk about is the complete mentality change that we've seen under Enzo Maresca. You know, that I think the tone was set early, in my opinion, just before even the Brentford game last season. Just everything, just slating players, throwing them under the bus, saying that we were overachieving. No one's going to feel motivated after that. And I think once we're out of the Europa League, it just kind of descended downhill. But I've just got here, I'm just going to read it out for everyone that wants to watch this back. But this is from Harry Winks, and this is just one example of a great example of, you know, where everyone's head's at and the positivity around the club right now. And it says, I've worked with some influential managers, and Enzo Maresca is one of the best in terms of ideas, tactics, and management. He's excellent, and I'm really enjoying working with him. I've learned so much in a footballing way. I feel like I've improved a lot in my game, as well as I've been only here in a couple of months. The way he makes you see the game, the scenarios he tells you, the way he almost tells you how the game's going to go before you go into it, and where the solutions are, it's just another level of coaching that I have really experienced before. And I'm loving it so much. What do you think of that, Ant?
It's high praise for Enzo Maresca, because it would have been very easy just for him to say, yeah, I'm getting on well with him and things are good. But the fact he's saying he's up there with the best coaches he's worked with, and he's only been here for so long, it's high praise, because you look who he's worked with as well: Pochettino, Mourinho, Conte. I mean, if he goes on to do half of what they've done in the game, we've got ourselves a top manager.
Absolutely brilliant. What do you guys think? What do you think, Anil?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're right to call it out, the mentality shift. That was something that was really needed. I mean, I think the thing is obviously, you know, we're really happy with Enzo. But I think, you know, what you could say is that, is there an argument to be said if we hired another manager, would we also be doing as well? Because we do have the strongest squad in the division. Just to put it into context, our annual wage budget is 65 million a year. Ipswich, who are just 2 points behind us, have something like 2.5 million. So on paper, that does feel like a bit of an unfair fight. But he does deserve the praise, in my opinion, because the thing is that Leeds and Southampton are showing you different results as to what can be picked. And he's had to do so much, right? So we're top of the league. We've got the joint best start made by any club in Championship history after 11 games in terms of goal difference. Fact. That's not my opinion. It's not subjective. That is a fact, right? We have the best defense, right? I don't know if you remember, but last season, why did we get relegated? It's because we couldn't buy a clean sheet, other than that Newcastle game where, to be honest with you, we got lucky because they missed a chance from about, 1 yard out. He's introduced a new style of play that can be man-to-man marking, it can be high presses, it can be deep blocks, it can do anything in between, right? That's very difficult to get. When we were going to appoint a manager, it was kind of obvious that Leicester being in this division, everyone was going to sit back. Yet he's a manager that knows how to break it down by being patient. Took a bit of time to win us over, but he's proved it, right? He's reinvented summer players. Like Winks actually is a good example, but Ndidi's got to be the biggest one I'm sure we're going to talk about in a moment, right? But also, you've got this mentality shift of people being depressed. I'm not sure if I want to stick around. Look at how happy some of the players are. Like, I think Ndidi is another good example. Even Iheanacho, he's got his cheeky smile back again. You can tell that he's loving it, right? Vardy looks like, he's better. The fitness, everyone seems that they can run that extra 2-3 yards this season where they were gassed. But how many times did we see Yuri Tillemans getting gassed at 60 minutes? In fact, if you want to see that, have a look at a Villa game. It's pretty hilarious. They're really unhappy with that signing. That's another one for another day. And also we had all this huge player turnover as well. So what an incredible job to say that. That's really high praise. But you know, I was thinking, you know, if you were going to rate Enzo out of 10 based on this quarter of a season, personally, I'd give him 10. I think people that are saying, oh, but we lost the whole, it's like, I mean, like I say, literally the fact is no team in championship history has made a better start. And given you had to do all of that and get it working, we found ourselves a Don. Don Maresca.
Found ourselves a Don. I'll let you, just before I go to you, Neil, just as for that whole game, I feel like, I know we lost that, but I feel like it wasn't like a loss. You know, we dominated the majority of that game. And I think it was a mistake from Doyle, if I remember correctly, that game. So that is going to happen playing out from the back and the way we play. You know, we will see those mistakes. I know you're aware of that, but there wasn't the end of the world or a total collapse that we've seen a lot of games last season.
We can look at that though, because I think what is interesting is even in the spell that Enzo's had, you could break this one quarter down into 3/3, in my opinion. You could have like pre-season and the first couple of games. Then you can have the period between the first international break and the second international break. And the really obvious thing is that in between that international break, when we came back, I personally recognize multiple things that had clearly been worked on that improved the team. And the two things that specifically stood out to me was the ability to sustain attack. So in that whole game, we actually were pretty bad at sustaining attacks. Like we'd make a chance, but it'd go out and then they'd get out the pressure and they could catch their breath. Whereas, for example, if you look at the Stoke and Preston games, you can see how mentally fatigued the players are for the opposition after maybe 50 minutes. And you know the goal's coming. You don't have to worry. Like you've been there yourself if you had to play against a top player in real football. You can't keep them out forever. You're going to make a mistake at some point. And the second is you can see the transition and attack. I think we really saw that in that Southampton game, but it's not just been that game. But we found our clinical edge, like that Blackburn game where we had 4 shots on target and scored all 4 goals. But it's like you can tell the movement is faster, the passing is faster, the finishing is crisp. And that's actually what was lacking in those first couple of games. And so for me, I think it's actually kind of, you know, I remember actually Neil was saying to me, has the international break came at the wrong time? But I actually got a feeling that we're going to come back and we're going to go up another level. And I'm interested to see what he's going to be worked on there. Maybe we can speculate on that. But we haven't even seen, you know, full Enzo football yet. And that's super exciting.
We keep saying that, Neil, and I'll come to you with this question, Neil. A lot of, you know, I'm not going to say any names, but we kind of know who I'm kind of mentioning here, but there is a lot of negativity from certain people and certain fans online about the possession-based football we're playing and that it's boring and it's this and that. And one of the things that I think is crucial, and I've mentioned it before, is, you know, this is kind of a blessing in disguise being relegated. No, it's not nice being relegated, but can you imagine Enzo Maresca trying to install, you know, his style of play into his players in the Premier League, and then the moaning that we would have from all the fans if we were getting battered, you know, 1 out of 3 games. And I don't think it would develop and flourish the way it is. And he'd be absolutely slated way worse than he is by these negative people, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Some people don't like change. It's just in general, they just don't like change. So if you set up a 4-4-2 and we play ball and we lose, they're just happy because that's playing what they enjoy. Genza here, share it with people, share it with your people and help get the message out there. I know I've done it. So again, this is a great show. You need to make sure that, again, you subscribe and get people to message out there. But yeah, in terms of, there's always going to be people that are complaining. There's people that were Man City that probably weren't happy last year. There's always going to be people that are going to be moaning. But the problem is some people just don't like this. They don't understand it. And I think that's the main thing. If they don't understand it, they can't get on with it. And they just go, I don't like it. Change is difficult. I don't like it. So it's been a massive change in terms of the backroom staff, in terms of the things. It's a shout out, Carl, as well. In terms of all the individual bits that have gone on behind the scenes, that have gone on in front of the scene. The fact that we had a horrible pre-season to set Enzo up for the beginning of the season, and he still managed to ride through it against the likes of Southampton that haven't had it, Leeds that have been in a worse position, as kind of, as I know was saying as well. So we've come through this in a really, really good way. That's a credit to John Rudkin. I don't think people are going to give him enough credit because people don't like him and I understand certain bits. He got it horribly wrong last year, but this appointment, what he's done, the backing of Enzo, and what this means for us going forward is really, really exciting. So I forgot what your initial question was, but in terms of where we're going, in terms of Leicester City and people being like moaning about what it is, I mean, you can't really complain. Some people are just, the people around me that will, Mahrez will score a hat trick and then he'll miss a shot. I knew it was rubbish. And it's just that's how they're programmed. I've been at the stadium so many times. It's just one of those things where people are just going to complain, and I don't know why, but that's just the nature of football as well. Maybe just the nature of British people.
Can I just add something to that quickly as well? It's like saying about sort of the people complaining. There's a clip that's gone viral from when Pep Guardiola's first season at Man City, saying that this team is, and it was an old Man City fan who was saying he's been going for years and like clearly not one of the ones that have just jumped on, but like has seen the tough times at Man City as well. But he was like, "Oh, this tippy tappy football isn't going to work in England. It's not gonna cut it in our game. You need to get the ball forward quickly." And then like that season, and like it's comparing pears to apples. I know that season they didn't win a trophy, and for Man City, like that's a bad season if you don't win a trophy. But then they've given him time, they've backed him, and he's gone on to have one of the most successful like decades in Premier League history in terms of the dominance of it, whilst picking up every other trophy available in the process in terms of the Champions League, League Cup, FA Cup, everything that there has been to win. He's won it, and he's broken every single record on the way to doing it.
Absolutely, and he's changed a lot of the way the game's played as well. You know, he's been in Germany, he's been in Spain, and now he's in the English football. And you know, this playing from the back, you're seeing a lot of clubs, you know, starting trying to integrate into that the way they're playing. It's just no one is really as good at it as Pep, and I think we're starting to look really, really great. I know we keep seeing comparisons to, you know, Leicester and Manchester City, and it frustrates a lot of people, but you can't help but see the similarities in a lot of ways.
For me, it's not just for playing out from the back, it's for pressing from the front and like the way that you sort of moving the ball and sort of dictating space and trying to open up teams. I think like the playing out from the back, obviously that is the start of where it comes from, but it's more, I feel like you look at, and this has been big sort of from Guardiola that I think has had a massive influence in English football, is that I think the ball is looked after a lot more now than it ever has been. And it's like before
that's the biggest difference. And yeah, keep going. But I want to say something on that as well. Yeah.
Before you would put a ball into a box, into an area, and like if you lost it, oh well, they're just going to lump it clear, and you can have the ball back. If you lose a ball now, you've got to work a lot harder than you ever had to get it back as well. So I think it's very like there's a very sort of easy way of saying there's the playing out from the back, but I feel like he's had such more of an influence on football than just that. And like because you look at the playing out from the back, Wenger did it for years, but it's the other side of the game, the off the ball side, I think as well has been massively important from what Guardiola's brought in.
Yeah, Luke. I mean, I actually think I know that rather than trying to turn it into flame wars, I think you should try and understand though why some fans have that opinion and maybe help them to understand it, right? So Ant's kind of hit the nail on the head, right? What some people will say, and this is fair criticism, by the way, is they even against the game against Stoke, for the first 24 minutes, at one point we had 90% possession, but we didn't have a single shot on target. The first shot we had on target, we scored. Why was that, right? So some of these fans are probably wanting to see more like, oh, let's cross it in, have shots, like pressure. But what Ant's saying, which is true, is that like when you take those shots, right, especially if they're poor quality shots or crosses, is you're going to lose the ball. And that actually opens you up. So you're actually going to be less attacking because bizarrely you're trying to attack more, if that makes sense, right? What we're trying to do is almost like Brazilian jiu-jitsu or MMA or something like that. We're trying to put them in a chokehold, right? Restrict what they can do, and then we're going to pick them apart with a clinical blow. And this style of football, if you get it working right, is extremely consistent and it's extremely hard to stop, which is why we've had one of the best starts in Championship history. So that's what they're kind of complaining about. Now, to be fair, we could try playing a style like Marcelo Bielsa, when he was in the Championship, played murder ball style with Leeds, and they would win games like 4-3, 5-4. They would also lose games. And when they were in the Premier League, they got slapped quite a few times, you might remember. And it was entertaining. Yeah. But I mean, to be fair, they beat us a few times too. But I mean, they actually got, battered 6-0 quite a few times and things like that, right? And towards the end, the fans were even saying they love Bielsa, but sometimes he's got to be more pragmatic. He can't just keep turning up against Man City and trying to beat them man for man because they're going to school us, and they did get schooled. So that's probably where the criticism comes from. But I think what these some fans have to get through their heads is if you're playing against a team and that team has 11 men behind the ball, right? You need to be artistic and creative in the way that you unlock them. And if we look at like the first goal that we scored against Stoke, like that is textbook Enzo Maresca football, where we've sustained the attack for several minutes. We've shifted it from centre to right to left, back to centre. All the players are then following, and then Iheanacho is completely free in the box, despite the fact that they've got 11 men in the box, and then he scores, right? And that's what we need to get our head around. So to be fair, though, you do see at the ground that fans are getting more with it. Like, they're not booing anymore. They kind of get it, right? This is what's happening. People are turning up. They're parking the bus. So it isn't just like, win the physical battle. But, what I would say, having watched English football for a long time, is still, especially older generations, football then, your reason for turning up and being entertained, they love the physical battle. That's like when Jamie Vardy shithouses someone with a late sliding challenge, gets a booking, but it gets the fans worked up. That's what I want to say. They've got a chant, F them up, get into them. I'll be polite with my language, right? Which you hear around the King Power a lot. And sometimes you do need that to get that going. So, I don't think, you should be like, poo-pooing people and saying, oh, you don't know, what you're kind of talking about. That's the sort of style, and they want to see a bit of that. And their criticism is that it's too patient for them at times. But if you were to evaluate, especially on winning games, like I say, Enzo's found the style it is the Pep style, to be honest with you, although it's got, I think, in my opinion, some De Zerbi influences in it. But this style is extremely consistent, because at the end of the day, if you play against another team and you have 70% of the ball, they're having so little of the ball that their chances of scoring against you are extremely low. And that's why we can do bonkers things like play Yannick Vestergaard 18 yards away from their goal, even though he's our centre-back, because they can't get the ball. And that means you can attack, and it means eventually you'll find them. And that's why we'll be consistent. So it went on a bit of a rant there, but
I love it.
Yeah, I think it is. Like I said, I think it's unfair to call it like a flame war. But at the same time, I do hope that some of those fans, sometimes I see some of the criticism. I don't think you're watching the game. I know that's going to sound brutal, but I don't think you understand what's going on. If you try and play against 11 men and you're just going to be like taking shot after shot and smashing it, you'll turn over the ball so much. And, when you push up so high, you're leaving gaps behind. So the game will end up being more of a 50-50 match, which is not what you want. You're trying to methodically and consistently win it. That's why Pep's teams can get to 90 points every single season. Because although they will have the occasional slip up like they did against Wolves, 9 times out of 10, you're going to turn up against a team and they're going to have 2 shots on target the whole game, and you're going to have 20. So statistically speaking, you're going to win. That's how it works. As simple as that.
You just hit the nail on the head when you just said that, like, that if you, and everyone's entitled to their own opinions about football and etc. But for me personally, the way I see it is like, I can understand what Enzo's trying to do, and you can see it just from the preseason when he was first, a lot of like this concern about him and the style of football he had. But as we all see it click each, and you said about 3 stages of where Enzo's been at this preseason, you're seeing it click a little bit more and more. And then the thing for me that I find interesting and entertaining is, when we have this high possession-based football and we're running them ragged and you're seeing all these late goals coming in, the 70-minute mark onwards, it's a methodical breakdown of the other team. And that's what I personally love to watch about that. It's just like, it's not if, it's when. And that's why I enjoyed this brand of football that we're playing.
Yeah. I think
sorry,
Ant.
Ant.
Go for it.
Sorry, guys. You go, Neil. So I just want to make sure everyone feels included. We're all pretty excited.
It's all good. I think one thing that was mentioned at the Hull game was that we don't have a plan B. Now, just as Annie was mentioning, Leeds under I've got his name's gone blank now. Bielsa. Maresca stuck in my head, and I was like, it's not that quite that. Bielsa. That was plan A. And plan A doesn't work. We do it again and again until it does work. Enzo, for me, has multiple ways of playing, even if it's the same formation. We'll change up the position. We'll change up the way. Against Southampton, when we went 3-1 up, we sat back and basically countered them, even with the same formation. So it's not as simple as going, we need to put 2 big men up front or a big man, small man up front to play a different way or to get another option in. We have the players that will come in and offer something different. All 4 wingers that we've been crying out for another mark. We've got 4 wingers that all do different things. Mavididi is slightly different to a Casey McAteer, which is slightly different to a Atgun, which is different to a Fatal. All of them bring different things, and we're putting them in at different times. And not just going, we're going to put a right wing. We'll put him on the left wing. We'll put Yunus Atgun in the number 8 position if we need to. We will play different people in different ways in order to break them down. So we've got the people, and then we're just going to, again, steamroll teams into the ground as we've been doing so far.
Absolutely. I think that's actually hit the nail on the head, Neil. What do you think, Ant?
Yeah, it's very similar to what I was going to say. And it's like, you look at certain games where we've had to wait to get later on in the game. We haven't changed shape. We've just changed slight sort of tweaks to the system of like players maybe playing slightly further advanced or playing slightly deeper. But to completely change the system and change the philosophy for like a Hail Mary, everyone in the box sort of last 5 minutes, it's just like, yeah, it looks great when it happens, but the percentage, like football is a percentage game. The percentages, the likelihood of that actually going in is a lot lower than it is from them countering you. You're more likely to get countered and them score at the other end than you are to score your own goal.
Absolutely, and in terms of as well what you said before, Neil, I think it was you that said it. Not Enzo not having a plan B. You know, we're in early days, and I don't know how you guys all feel about this, and I'll ask you this in your next, but like, you know, I would much rather get plan A right first, comfortably, you know, in this new team under a new manager before we start trying to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's clearly the ideology that he's gone there. I think we've talked about this in some other channels as well, is that like, what would you address first? Because he could have decided to try and get the attack working first, and he went for the defense. That, again, I think is where some of the criticisms come from, the football being boring. But, you know, as we all know, it's like goals win games, but clean sheets win championships. So the fact that we have the best defense in the league and we're starting to get more and more clean sheets might be boring, but the thing that you should fix first. Because if you do that, then you're going to be always getting points. Because the thing is, in the championship, even if you draw a game, I've always thought of it as you haven't really dropped points. You've gained a point, because it's just such a brutal division. You know, just as long as you're picking up points, it matters towards the end. So yeah, there's that aspect of it. He's trying to get it, you know, perfect, I think, first in that thing, and it'll probably take all season. I mean, it could even take longer than that. I've posted this before, but there was this stat that was shown between Brendan Rodgers and Jurgen Klopp after they've both played, I think, 80 games at Liverpool. So 80 games is pretty much 2 full seasons, and basically their win ratio was exactly the same. And in fact, Brendan Rodgers has scored slightly more goals, like 2 or 3 more goals. And so people are like, oh, I'm not really sure Jurgen Klopp's football is going to work in England. And then 6 months later, they turned into this absolute behemoth. And, you know, they ended up being the only team recently that's really properly challenged Man City and taken a title off them. So it will come. I do know that when he was at Parma as well, he did do some slightly different things tactically as well. So look, we've already seen it. So Ant kind of mentioned this earlier as well. But for example, when we played Preston, he did try something very slightly different, which is he put Ricardo up to make as an extra attacking midfielder. And he did that because he thought they were going to put 5 men at the back. Now, they did park the bus, but they didn't put 5 men at the back. They put 4. And so he even said after the game, they're like, oh, I got, to be honest with you. They tactically did something I didn't expect. But then second half, he made a change and we beat them. So you don't need to worry, we'll get there. But I think it is really important to get those fundamentals first. I've seen like another interview recently with Lewis Dunk at Brighton saying that when he met De Zerbi for the first time, he said that literally the first month he spent with him, it was baffling. Like, couldn't quite really understand what they were saying. Like, you got to stand here and you got to rehearse this and you got to practice that. And then, of course, when they started realizing that they're winning game after game after game, they're like, oh, hang on a minute. This is quite good, this De Zerbi ball, isn't it?
Absolutely. So I've just seen, sorry guys, I had a bunch of messages come in. Mavididi nominated for Player of the Match award as well.
Player of the Month.
Player of the Month, sorry, mate. Player of the Month. I'll get into the comments after I answer this. So I thought he started guns blazing, and I actually said I've actually got receipts for this. I thought it looked like a level above to begin with, and he still looks excellent. What I will say is I definitely think he could be frustrating sometimes. But what I like about him is he does track back, which we didn't ever see of Harvey Barnes. But I love his confidence in taking his man on. He has got that flair, and I definitely under Enzo could see him develop into an absolute weapon. I hope. Touch wood. We got here. Mavididi nominated for Player of the Month award. What do you guys think of that?
Yeah, for me, Mavididi is one of those players that I've said it for a while. He's got the potential to be a Premier League player, but at the moment, I think he's one of those that's too good for the Championship, not quite Premier League level. But I think we've got the right coach to help improve players and help develop players. Because like, I know we talk about Enzo Maresca as a manager, but fundamentally he is a coach. You look at like his years at Man City, you look at him as an assistant at Man City, he was heavily involved in coaching there. So I think he will be able to step up to the Premier League next year. I don't think he's at level yet, but I do think he will improve. But I do think Jack Clarke, who won the Player of the Month award for Sunderland, I think he's absolutely phenomenal as well. I think he's a top draw talent.
He's a beast, bro. Sorry, guys. I don't want to be rude. We've got a lot of comments coming in. I'm not used to this because I don't usually get a lot of viewers, so it's actually quite nice. But here I've got, what have we got here? Richard, looking back, we had a great preseason, just what we needed. Not loads of games, double sex training every day, players staying at Seagrave, getting bonding. Mate, I would love to. You can feel this good energy around the club. You guys probably can see a lot better than me being there live, but people look happy to be playing at Leicester and to be wearing that shirt pride, and that's all we really ever asked and wanted from our players. Got here, how you going, Ethan? Don't want a basketball game. Yeah, neither do I, mate. I don't really fancy basketball, but each their own. Vestergaard, I'm definitely going to talk about him soon, mate. Scott, how are you? I'd rather us suffocate other teams and make them work extra hard off the ball as it's having a devastating effect. That is pretty much what we were just talking about earlier, mate. Like, spot on. Like, systematically break these teams down, make them gas, punish them, flex our Manchester City bench in the Championship at the last 20, 30 minutes, and then really put people away. And that's another thing as well. People, in terms of parking the bus, and Neil, you mentioning there's been almost like 3 stages under Enzo so far. We're seeing now, after that Southampton game, and that international break, that was one of the things that Enzo City wanted to work on, is how we were our end product in the final third. And you can clearly see we worked on it. We came back, we absolutely belted, with all due respect, Southampton. And now that we're seeing teams starting to park the bus, and it's just like the more and more goals are flowing through. So, and I think it's absolutely brilliant. Jordan, LCFC, how are you? People are saying our playing style is boring. That each their own. It's all a matter of opinions, but I think it's excellent. My question would be: is it sustainable if we go back up?
That's a great question. That is a great question.
That is a good question. Yeah. Well, we may as well talk. I was going to leave it till the end. I've got my notes here, and the last thing here says, I spoke to Ant. I was like, I know we should just concentrate on one thing at a time and worry about the Championship, but it's too hard to with how we've been playing. I'm too excited. I'll come back to my other point. We're going to have to talk about it now because I'm excited. Hypothetically, okay, if we were to go back to the Premier League, what is great for me is how Enzo's really, we just touched on how he's a great coach and the development of these young players. We never would have expected to see Cassie McAteer absolutely have this breakthrough start of the season that he has. And what's interesting is it's great to have these youngsters, but if we were to go to the Premier League, right, it's very curious to see how we're going to build around that team and how many of these youngsters we keep and how many maybe get sent out on loan. Do we eventually turn a profit from some of these guys? It's all ifs, buts, and maybes. But it's very interesting to me to see under Enzo this style of play and how we would do in the Premier League. And I think this is the best place to get that foundation established and then build around it. What would you say to that, Anil?
Yeah, well, I think the acid tests are we'll find out a little bit this season. So we've already played Liverpool. First time we played them in pre-season, we were good for 20 minutes. Then we got absolutely battered. Then we played them in a cup. We took the lead. We were 1-0 up at half time. I wouldn't say we got battered, but our goal definitely lived a, charmed life, shall we say. And in the end, they came out fairly convincing 3-1 winners. Although we did make chances. Like Ndidi had a chance where it was through 1-on-1 and he could have maybe put that away for 2-2. So,
and that was our reserve team.
That was our reserve team. I would also say that probably was their reserve team too, though, Neil. A certain Mr. Salah was not playing, who I've heard is quite a good player, is what people have told me. So that's a challenge. But look, that was pretty early into our reign. So I'm actually quite excited for when January rolls around because that's when the FA Cup will turn up. And I think we were quite unlucky to get Liverpool that early. I think if we'd have got another Premier League team, like a Palace or a Forest or a Wolves or a Fulham or something like that, I've got a feeling we may actually have turned them over or it'd have been closer. I think to go against someone who's probably going to end up in the top 3 this season is, pretty harsh, especially away from home. So I think we'll learn more information in that. But basically what I'm saying is I think we might go on a bit of a cup run this year. Will we win it? Well, probably not, because it's pretty unlikely for a Championship club to do it. Although I think Millwall once did get to the final or something. I seem to remember in the 2008, something like that. It has happened before. And I think we'll learn mostly from that. But look, I think the reason why the question is a great one is because if we look at like Burnley right now are third bottom of the Premier League. They're actually behind Luton, although they got the same amount of points. And that's 4 points from 8 games. And they dominated the Championship last season. And they also completely changed their style of play from Sean Dyche Brexit football to Vincent Kompany's, Guardiola inspired. They play possession football. They play out from the back. They try and make chances. And at the moment, the results haven't been kind of shown for them. So that's why it's a good question. Yeah. Now, I think that if we go up, I would argue that we might even have a stronger squad than Burnley already, even though in the division below, which might sound a bit insane, but I think there is merit to saying that. I think we need to keep an eye on them to see, though, because it is a pretty brutal division when you go up. And that's the thing, like in a lot of our games, we probably only give away one chance a game. But because it's the Championship, that chance doesn't get punished. Whereas when you're in the Premier League, those chances do get punished. I remember seeing things like Harry Kane falling over but scoring as he fell over. Like that was the level of striker that you get at the very elite level. So we're only going to know when we get there. But what I will say is that this style of play, on paper, it should work. And I think you could actually look at a different team, which is Brighton, who are 6th. Right. And Brighton have shown that they can beat the very top teams, right? Although they did also get battered by Everton last season, which probably sent us down. So thanks a lot for that, Brighton. But yeah, their style of play is they play out from the press, they can make chances, and it shows you that in a very aggressive division, that style of play can work. And it took them time to master it. So I think if we can get as good as playing out and playing between the lines as they are, there's every reason to think that we could be successful. And I also would have a feeling that if we get promoted, that they will give Maresca a bumper, both new contracts, but I think more importantly, they will back him pretty hard. Because even though we spent quite a lot this summer, because we're in a Championship, we didn't sign a player, I think, for more than 10 million, which was Harry Winks, right? If we would have been in a Premier League, because we sold James Maddison, Harvey Barnes, and we'd be in a Premier League and we lost so many players, there would be multiple players coming in for 25 to 30 million. There would be probably at least 3 or 4. So that's going to happen regardless, I think. And I think given he's done such an impressive job so far, I mean, we don't know what the end of the season is, but let's say that we do go up and it's the record points total. And, that's going to give us some serious firepower that we're going to need there. But for example, you just mentioned Mavididi, but that's the sort of thing that I do wonder if Maresca, if he'll be kind of ruthless and he'll be like, yeah, well, you did me good in that division, but this is the Premier League. And in the Premier League, you can't be, you've got to be a level above. You've got to be of a certain standard, because if you don't, there's one chance you get in a game, you've got to take it at that level. So that's what I would say.
Absolutely. And one thing for what you just said that makes me feel confident in him maybe taking that approach is how much rotation that we see from his starting 11, which is brilliant. And I know it's a long, big season of the Championship, but I love that he integrates all these players and keeps people on their heels. And, not the same starting 11, like last season, no matter how you play, competing for a spot, which is great. And what do you think of big thing for me is the turnaround of, especially Yannick Vestergaard and Wilfred Ndidi. And in terms of, Enzo is a great coach, motivating his players, get them playing excellent again. How do you feel about that?
I think you've got to give credit to Enzo first and foremost, because I think Vestergaard looked like he was going to be on the bench for another year, 70k a week, just wait until the end of the summer and then be off next year. Like, he's come in and he's been absolutely brilliant, and Enzo deserves a lot of credit for that. Moved Ndidi further up the pitch, so I think it's playing to a system that suits these players. And I do think though, you've got to say it at the same time. Would we get away with Vestergaard playing this role in the Premier League? Like, I think I
reckon we would, to be honest with you, but that's a controversial take. Yeah.
No, but we very much could do it. But it's like, I think you've also got to caveat the fact of you look against who we're playing against. We're playing against the team that were third in the league when we played them in Preston, offered absolutely nothing going forward. And like we were saying about, and I'm going to sound really negative here, but we were saying about suffocating teams in, and saying about sort of adapting to the Premier League. It's a lot harder to suffocate teams in the Premier League because they'll have quality players that can transition the ball up the pitch and also hold on to the ball, compared to Preston and Stoke both did it. It wasn't about getting the ball up the pitch. It was about keeping the ball out of their own net. So I think this is a lot of what Burnley have learned from early on is that they're not the only team that want to play football in the Premier League. Both teams want to keep the ball. Like compared to in the Championship, it was only them who really wanted to play football.
And they've spent a lot of money as well. They've spent over 100 million this window. They've backed Company quite drastically. But I think Company, from what I've heard from Burnley fans, have changed their tactics. They're not playing with the proper left back out and out, which hasn't worked in their favour. They've spent money. They've kind of got carried away with the money as well. So they've kind of let Company do what he wants to do. In terms of what we can do, I think we can do something. And I think it helps with the club being in a good place, being up towards challenging for Europe and looking at scouting some of these players as well. Enzo will be trusting. I think he will, again, coming into the Premier League, I think he will do a good job. But I think there's things going wrong because of Company and the way Burnley's ran, because of they kind of got carried away with things, which is totally understandable to try and stay in the Premier League. But I think that we will be more secure, and I think we will finish, wherever Burnley will finish this season, I think we will finish higher than them the season before, when we get into the Premier League next season.
I love that confidence when, not if.
Yeah, I know when. We're all saying that Sorry, Ed.
I think something big to mention with Burnley is they didn't go and sign their best centre-back last season in Harwood Bellis for some reason either.
Yeah, that was weird, wasn't it? That
yeah,
they did that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, I talked to Ben, who's a Burnley fan a fair bit, who I have on my channel, and a lot of what he said is they've moved away from a lot of the principles that they were doing last year, almost in a panic. It didn't work right at the start of the season. Oh God, like almost sort of getting cold feet kind of thing. I don't think Enzo Maresca does that. I think Enzo Maresca sticks to his principles, and he showed that at Anfield. Like, it's probably one of the hardest places to go and try and play out from the back. And like, whilst it wasn't Liverpool's first team, Cody Gakpo, Jota, Szoboszlai, they do have some hard names to pronounce, don't they?
Yeah.
But do you know what I mean? It's not as if it was a team that they just found on Stanley Park before the game. It was a team absolutely stacked with like international talent.
100%. That second team alone would absolutely bounce the championship, we could confidently all say. So there was no shame in the way we played that game at all. I only got to see, unfortunately, bits and pieces of it. It's the one game this season that, even though I would have gotten up crazy early for it, I could not find a way to watch it. So before I get into some comments as quickly, I can see heaps of them coming in. I don't who we got here? Richard, I'll just get into a couple and I'll try and get through as many as I can. Richard, how are you, mate? What we need to work on is to get better at the wide players and the centre mids to box the opposition in and winning the ball back. But let's face it, the championship standard is crap.
No, I think that's a good point, though. He's saying that, yeah, the high press, that's another thing that definitely improved in between the two windows. I think I have heard Maresca hint at something like that, because that's going to allow you to sustain the attack a lot more. Like, if you turn the ball over faster up the top of the pitch, then you can do it. So he's got things. We know that the championship standard isn't that good, but like I say, it's a budget issue. If you've literally got 30x the budget of the team that's one position below you, you would expect us to be kind of humiliating teams. So it's fair enough. All I'm saying is that, it's funny being this, because this season we're the villain, right? But say last season, after you lose to Man City, whatever, everyone's like, "Oh, football's crap. It's just totally busted. How can you compete with these teams that have got oil states?" And and it's fair, to be honest with you. Like, everyone's felt that. That is the biggest reason why people love the Leicester City story, because no one ever thought that would be possible. That these team of journeymen and loan signings and free transfers and non-league signings could win the title, and it happened, and that gave everyone hope. And I would actually argue that the response in football to us winning the title is it's actually become even more like cutthroat, and it looks even less likely now than as unlikely as it was then. For example, Brighton had an amazing season last year, and still what ended up happening? 6th, didn't get to a cup final. They got beat by Man United, even though they beat them twice in the league. So they achieved nothing, right?
And in the summer, their squad got ravished.
Yeah, it's fair play. They are still sick, which is quite impressive. And maybe, I kind of credit them. Let's hope they win the Europa League or something like that. But, I don't know about you, but I don't really like seeing the oil state backed teams win, or even Chelsea with a ridiculous amount of money. But in this division, we are considered exactly that. So that's why people are like, you know, I remember seeing this thing going, I paid £38 to see Yannick Vestergaard and Harry Winks humiliate Stoke. I hope you're happy with it. You know, you idiot foxes. So I get it. If you're on the receiving end of that, it must feel like it's just not fair, right?
I know that Ant's retweeted that. I've requoted that.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah,
100%. I don't even
That
seen it, but I know that Ant had a comment on it going, cry more or something.
Here we go.
I've shared the screen, Luke.
He's got it already.
He was so ready for that.
He had it up ready to talk. I never want to Leicester again. Cheeky bastard rotated key players against us, kept the ball for 90 minutes, took the piss, total humiliation. Congratulations on promotion. Go back and ball the Premier League, you boring bastards. Oh, I love the Championship.
Do you know what though? That is, I will say one thing that I think the fans are much better in this division.
Yeah,
they're
100%.
much better in this division. They're proper. Even you notice it on the fan channels when you talk to them. They're much more proper geezers, right? And you know, girls as well. They're more genuine. They know what football's really about. They're proper supporters.
It's the thing is, and I don't want to sound like a prick here, but I'm going to anyway.
You are.
Go for it.
A lot of a lot of the Championship fans, and even sort of non-traditional top six clubs, they've been born into these clubs. It's like their dad supports for more family, or it's their local club. A lot of the sort of, and I know a lot of the top six fans are the same as that. They're born into it. It's their local area. But a lot of the fans as well are also, we're going to support them because they've won X, Y, and Z. We're going to support them because they're winning. There's no real connection to the club.
That drives me absolutely mental, and I can definitely speak on that, especially being in Australia. You know, the reasons for following clubs here is purely success, and it drives me absolutely mental. And, you know, the amount of people I see at five-a-side coming in wearing different jerseys, it's like, hey, man, I don't know about you, but I'm only ever going to walk into these doors wearing a Leicester jersey and nothing else. And,
but it gives you a sense of community as well. The fact that I've known people, or even like following different music genres, where it's more like on the lesser known, and there's kind of like there's a camaraderie that's not there with the bigger kind of the main acts. It's got the glamour and the bigger lights and the big events and things, but there's something you can't replace about being part of a smaller community. You feel like, okay, this feels more special than something that a bigger team could ever emulate.
What Neil was saying is Taylor Swift is the Man United of the music world. Can't stand for her with her 4 billion she's going to earn from her tours and stuff like that. You know,
it's a fair comparison.
It is. It's like, though, have you ever been on holiday and wearing a Leicester top and you see someone else wearing a Leicester top? It's like, yeah, look at him.
Yeah. Leicester friend, give each other a hug. Yeah.
But it's like you see every other, like you go in the street, even when I went to Portugal in the summer, the amount of Man United tops, the amount of like Liverpool, Chelsea. I know they're global clubs, but then I saw one bloke in a Leicester top and it made my morning.
Even if it's not a Leicester top, I saw a fan in a Hull top a couple of years when just after they beat us. I remember I was on holiday and I saw them in a Hull, and it was a Hull rugby top. But I thought, let's go have a word with them. And it's just after the time they beat us 2-1, the year after we won the league. And we had a really good conversation. Why are you wearing a Hull top? Where you like, and just find out a little bit more about them, and kind of like Man United going, I like Rooney, I like Ronaldo, which tend to be more common. But it was really good conversation, and then we just kind of like left it at that, and then we just went about our way. It was really nice. It was, so even if it's outside, I really enjoyed chatting to people outside the top six, having the previews and things for that exact reason, because they go, oh, well, they'll tell you all this information. And I was interviewing, speaking to a Norwich fan recently. I didn't even realize that Russell Martin, Southampton's manager, was a really big player for them. And then I didn't even realize that. Oh, okay. And then you find out that I didn't realize that Mavididi was linked to them. So you just kind of, oh, okay, that's interesting. And you kind of let them talk, and it's brilliant. Rather than a Man United fan, you kind of, the stories are always in the headlines. So you always find that out because they're always we know about their stories. They don't know about ours.
And can I just say that one thing? Sorry, Luke, to cut you off. Is one thing to caveat that is like some of the United fans I know, like absolute brilliant, like, and their knowledge of a club is fantastic, and that club means everything to them. Same as Liverpool, Chelsea, etc. But it's more the sort of ones that will switch teams. They support the team, but because they've winning, and if they stop winning, are they really that concerned? Or sort of, will they still be that bothered about the club? But that's sort of the ones that I mean, because I think in every fan base there's brilliant fans that you can talk to, but I think there's more in the Championship and the smaller clubs.
Yeah, and also the
Absolutely.
reason why. Sorry, Luke. The reason why they
No,
thought.
no,
I remember
no.
the one time at university, there was one guy that was like, "Oh, who do you support? Oh, Leicester. What league are they in? You're a Chelsea fan. We played you 3 weeks ago." But they just had no idea. They just said, "Yeah, Chelsea fan," but they had no idea. What league you in? We played you 3. What are you on about? But some people it's just the social thing that they say just to kind of like, oh, I'm picking a side, I'm picking a team, and you're either and do you actually follow it? Well, not really, but it's a different relationship when you again follow the club that for a different reason rather than just you winning stuff or because they're popular at the time.
Absolutely. Like, I bet you've all seen this. Have you guys seen that video of that guy like questioning people about players from the 80s for Manchester City? Like, oh, you're a big Man City fan, yeah? Yeah, I am. Oh, do you remember this player and that player? And they were like, what? Like, no, they're plastic fans, you could say, some of them. But let's not get into that. I've gone into a wicked tangent already. Guys, I want to go on to you next. I'll start with you, Anil. What do you guys think? Oh, actually, no. I'll start this with... I'll come to you in a sec, Ant, because I've heard you mention it before. Because you want Ant, by the way, everyone, please follow him on Twitter. He's a professional shithouser. January, do you think we spend any money? And I definitely expect people like Everson to get a move. He deserves it. It's a shame. Patson Daka, I also probably expect him to get a move as well. And I think he's been frustrating for me personally to watch, but I also don't think he suits the Enzo ball. I don't think he can play with his back to goal. He's kind of that on the break kind of player. And if people are going to park the bus in front of us, I just don't think it will suit his pace and how he plays. Maybe I'm wrong. I would like to be proven wrong for the money we spent on him, but I would expect people like him, Everson to go. Sutar, not quite sure. Brilliant squad player to have, but who do you expect, Anil, to possibly depart? And also, do you think we're going to bolster our squad any further?
I'd be surprised if we did. I mean, you got AFCON. That's the biggest thing, right? So that means you're definitely going to lose Iheanacho and Ndidi. Iheanacho scored yesterday, by the way. It was a really good goal. You can tell his confidence is back. It was like one of them top bins curler from kind of 25 yards out. So if we're losing both of those and you've only got Vardy now, we signed Tom Cannon, but by the sounds of it, he might be training by that point in time, but I think he's going to be in no place to start. So what does that mean? I could see us trying someone else in that false 9 position. Mavadidi, Pratt might be back by that point. He's been tried in that position. I could even see Casey McAteer. He seems to be someone you could put anywhere and you play a good game. But the games do come thick and fast, and you got the FA Cup there as well. I could actually see us doing a loan signing or something in that period for that exact reason to try and get through it. The people that you've mentioned, anyone who's not really featuring in the matchday squad could go. Iverson, I'm a bit puzzled as to why he wasn't able to get a move, to be honest with you, especially given that he was Preston's player of the season when he spent a lot of time on loan there. You'd thought they'd really like him. I know it's because Alex Neil was the manager at that time, and then Alex Neil went to Stoke, but Stoke could probably do it. I mean, he's a good shot stopper. If you're not looking to play up from the back, he's a fantastic keeper. So maybe they will, but I don't think there'll be too much activity. Actually, what I could see happening is I could see them making some of the people that we've signed on loan being made permanent already, depending on how they do. I think it would take quite a killer amount of form to do that, because at the same time, you probably want people like Fatawu and Yunus to be thinking like, well, we might sign you, but you've still got to show a little bit more, and that being when we get promoted. But at the same time, like those two, I think look very good acquisitions for the prices that have been quoted. So maybe they'll want to do that. I'm not sure, but I don't think we need to sign too many players, to be honest with you. And so I don't think we will. They might, if anything, start doing some things for next season already, start planning for it.
Okay. This is why I wanted to come to Ant. He wants to piss people off. That's why he's a professional shithouser.
Right, so this was from a Preston fan, and this is what we get every week. I'm absolutely baffled of Leicester fans waxing lyrical about this season. It's simply bonkers how much quality they have front to back, and millions and millions and millions worth sat on the bench. Honest question, are LCFC fans exciting about bullying the league for 12 months? Yes, I'm absolutely.
We know the answers to that. Yeah, exactly.
But I do hope we spend another 20 million in January, partly because it is going to wind everyone up. Like, there is that side of it. I actually do think as well, if we're buying players that aren't just sort of short-term AFCON sort of replacement players, but players that are looking to be with us long-term, if we're in a position in January where we look like we're going to be going up, then if they're available, why not? But that being said, and I say this with the loan signings, we can't go out and sign Fatawu, Doyle, Kasede in January because I've just seen that. We can't go out and sign them in January, even if we're in a very strong position, because if we don't get promoted, then you leave yourself in a financial hole.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of you got to remember that January we don't do business. We realise there's not as much good stuff in there. Coming into what we're planning to do, I think in the future we will be better. We will be more. We'll be in a stronger position. And also, I think that the scouts that we've done previously will be similar level to what we're going to do next year when we come up. So because of what we're doing, because of what we're trying to achieve with it, I think the actual quality of scouting, we're used to Premier League scouting players. I forgot what his name is now. Was it Rob Glover or something? I can't remember. Martin Glover. Martin Glover. Yeah, I guess so. But there wasn't, apart from that, our January signings have not been that great. The only one really comes to mind is Yuri Tillemans of recent. Even that was on loan and we did it permanent in the summer.
Wilfred Ndidi?
Wilfred Ndidi worked. Yeah, I'll give you that one. That was, yeah. It's not been too many, though. Majority of them, they do tend to prefer the summer window. They get more done there. And also,
the streets will never forget Tete.
No.
They will.
Having said that, though, mate, if we're in a position in January where we look like we're going to win the league, it might be a more attractive proposition than for some players to jump into that.
Yeah, because you learn the system right away. Again, if you're looking for these up-and-coming players, yeah.
That was the biggest caveat as well, mind you. Like, I believe that Enzo Maresca didn't come into Parma with a pre-season under his belt. I think he came in halfway through the season or towards the end. So when people slated him for his time there, I think it was unfair and unjustified, but he's proved all the doubters wrong. I've got a heap of comments coming in. This is the next thing I wanted to talk about. Good question, Scott. Thoughts on Iheanacho, Ndidi, etc. Players out of contract in June, leaving in January. We cannot let anyone else walk out for free. I would love for these guys. I could see Nacho staying. Ndidi, I could definitely see someone making a big play for him, but I would love for him to hopefully do what Maguire did, put pen to paper, sign a contract, get some value of him, and, wish him well on his way. But obviously, I'd love to keep him. Another player under Enzo that's had a complete turnaround, different position, playing of confidence with a smile. I think it's excellent, but cannot let him go for free.
I think all of those will stay. I think they look happy. Like Ndidi, I don't know if people know this, but he did a university course at De Montfort. He's like quite settled into the area. So I would be surprised. Like, I think the links of him with Forest, that was believable for the same reason that Yuri Tillemans went, which is that you don't have to move house if you go to that club because it's close enough that you can travel there. So that's, if anything, the ones that would go there. But now that he looks like reinvented and he's clearly loving his football again, unless there's like an absolute mega bucks offer that we have no way of stopping, I'm pretty confident he'll be given the contract and he'll sign it, probably via Nacho. I think the interesting one is Yannick Vestergaard is out of contract. And I cannot see there being a world where he doesn't get given a new one. And then that's probably going to cause a lot of upset with the fans, but I think he'll get one, yeah.
I think he should get one, but it should be on reduced terms. I think the contract...
Or lower durations. Instead of it being 4 years, it could be 2 or something like that, yeah.
And also, he need... and I know I say this on my own channel, I hate it when I make myself sound like an accountant talking about football, but he should not, and as brilliant as he's been this year, we need to get players like him off 70 grand a week.
Yes.
He was on 80, I think, from what I've seen. But the way we used to do contracts under Brendan was the fact that it was, you get this money every single week, whether you win, whether you don't play, whether you're injured, you get that money. We've changed it now to a method where if you get us promoted, then you get a certain bonus, then you get an increase in wages. So it works a lot better, and that's what Newcastle are doing more. It's the reason why they held off the James Maddison contract as well, because they want to do more of that and put massive bonuses in that kind of gets around FFP rules.
It's a funny one, that, and especially with Vestergaard, because like we all kept saying, and myself included, we're all thinking, you know, like, oh, as soon as Connor Cody's not injured, you know, he slots straight back in and Vestergaard's just doing a job. But then it just kept on getting better and better. And then as much as I hate to say it, like there is a stark difference for me personally on his ball distribution and how important it is playing through the middle between him and Winks and setting everything up and that one-touch passing. All starts with Yannick Vestergaard or Mansa Manson, and he's been absolutely integral for a lot of our success. And it's easy to make an argument that it's easier and better to have Yannick than it is Connor Cody, and I can't believe I'm even saying that out loud. We have got a long season where we can have a lot of rotation, and Enzo is doing that, but mate.
Well, Cody was always going to be a signing that was good for the Championship, but there was always questions about him in the Premier League, because the thing is that Wolves didn't want him and Everton didn't want him. And if you look at both those teams, they're hardly the success stories of Premier League football right now. So I think that does say a lot, and that's why he's ultimately been happy to accept a move down to the Championship, right? Harry Winks, for a similar reason as well, right? You know, he was on loan in Sampdoria, who got relegated in Serie A. So it's like, where's he going to kind of take it from? You know, you never know. I mean, maybe we talked about transfers before, but that could definitely be a position where they decide to do a massive upgrade in the summer anyway, and they try and find someone. But I think that Vestergaard's showing that, like, in those games where you are going to control possession, he is so good at doing that even if he is going to get beaten for pace on the back, I mean, that's probably going to be the case wherever, that he would probably have a role to play. And like in the Premier League, there are almost like 2 or 3 leagues within one league, right? There's basically top 6 or 7 teams that have got resources that are hard to compete with. But then all the other games, the ones that you're trying to win, like really, that's again the reason why we got relegated. Like, you know, we drew against Leeds, we drew against Everton, we lost twice against Southampton. They're the teams that you've got to beat. And he is probably going to be they've already beaten Southampton this season, right? So I think he can be brought in for that reason. But it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I personally think regardless, they will make another centre-back signing on top of Callum Doyle going up again. Although it is a bit funny, Leicester at the moment, we seem to be collecting centre-backs like a Panini sticker albums, or, you know.
And wingers too. We only used to have like maybe 1 or 2, and now we've got a whole team of wingers. It's absolutely brilliant.
Well, but we see why we need that. That makes sense, right? So someone said that they thought that Mavididi wouldn't be good enough for the Premier League. I mean, I could see that happening as well. I think we would sign a quality winger on that side again if we go up. The other side, well, maybe even both sides. Burnley did it for the same reason. They know that when you're up against that quality, being able to beat your man in a Championship is one thing, but being able to beat, you know, an international right or left back is a whole different story.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I've got your thing. I'll share the stage here. Are you guys all right? Does anyone need to shoot off? I know it's been a long one. If anyone needs to, just let me know if you need to shoot off. It's been an hour, but I'm happy to keep going. Just let me know if you need or have anywhere you need to be.
I'm all good.
You're all good, mate. Sweet. Let's pull this up. All right, Neil. It's hard for me to see this. Let's go full screen.
You can zoom in if you want.
Yeah, I will.
All right. I'm jealous of Leicester fans. Win the Premier League, Champions League Quarter League Final, FA Cup winners. Then they get bored of the Premier League and thought she'll just drop down to the Championship for a season and smash it. Just for a laugh. Grow up. Oh, I love seeing this because
so bipolar when it comes to Leicester City.
He just does it for It's just interactions. It is just interactions. And someone who baits people enough on Twitter recognizes when someone else is doing it.
To be fair, I don't know if you listen to their podcast. I think they're quite complimentary of Leicester. Like, they haven't said anything controversial. They've been like, they're dominating the Championship, and they could be a lot better.
They said we had the worst window. They said Connor Cody was the worst signing in the Championship.
And
that's what they said at the start of the season. But they you know, they can accept that they've made a mistake and they've changed their opinion. So, you know, I say every week. I think that they, like I say, they've said, okay, this is clearly, you know, a bit of a cheat code, bringing on Jamie Vardy and Wilfred and Diddy in the, you know, 20 minutes to go. What are you going to do against that kind of it? You know, they love Keane and Dewsbury Hall as well, which I think is funny because up until recently he wasn't performing that great. But to be fair, the last couple of games he probably has been the best player in the division.
I still think Harry Winks has been better in the last.
Harry Winks, yeah. Neil, how many people slated him before he wasn't that good of a signing? He was a Tottenham reject. He's hit the ground running big time. And as per that quote that I mentioned at the very start of the stream, like he he's been one of the biggest benefiters from, the Enzo ball. And I think he could take his game to a level above thanks to that and in this championship. And I definitely think he's Premier League quality.
I think he is. I'm still surprised we got him. When we were linked to him, I was like, yeah, it's not going to happen, is it? It's not going to happen in terms of, and we did, and he's playing an integral role. I think when we come up to the Premier League, I think he's playing some he just keeps it moving, but at the same time, there's been times where a player's gone for a slide tackle, he's lifted the ball over them and kept running. Like, it's been incredible, some of the play he's been doing. I'm just so surprised that we've managed to get him. And it just shows you at the moment what Leicester can attract in terms of, at this moment with this kind of team, what's the next level when we get up to the Premier League? What kind of player can we attract? So I've been really happy. And the reason why he signed was because he spoke to the manager and he goes, I'm both the manager. This is the style of football I want to play. I want to play in this position. I want to be an integral part of the team. I can't remember who I was listening to. I think it was BBC Radio Leicester, where they mentioned they got his characters right. He's been great on social media. He's leading. He maybe not like a big shouter, like a big charismatic leader like Connor Cody, but I think he leads by example. The fact that he's playing in all these divisions, he's played in the Champions League. He's got the experience there, and he will be part of that senior leadership team. So I'm over the moon that we got him in the first place, and he's just looked fantastic for us. And I think there's the fact that they got Maddison and we got Winks in return, even though they both seem like Tottenham fans. I can't believe we got rid of Harry Winks and we got him a position. I kind of almost feel the same way round in terms of we need to get rid of Maddison. We got Harry Winks in return. He's a phenomenal transfer.
Absolutely.
He's also an artist. If you let me share my screen, I don't know if you've seen this. It's absolutely hilarious. This was his touch map in a recent game. And as you can see, his touch map is the equivalent of a midfielder trapping the ball with his left foot. So Harry Winks isn't just dominating the passes, but he's a pure artist on the pitch too.
Absolutely crazy. Yeah. He's absolutely everywhere. How many touches him and Vestergaard have had in some of these games have been absolutely mental. They've completely bossed the ball. He, in my opinion, like at first I was starting to shout, Ricardo Pereira in terms of putting all our eggs in one basket in a position. But I actually think the most vital, and again, I'll repeat this, Anil, you said this, he is the heartbeat of this team. He's the one player, if he gets injured, I worry a little bit about how we perform. I don't know how you feel about that, guys, but he to me is one of the most integral parts of how we play right now.
Well, clearly that in that touch map that I showed you, that was the game where he had 100% pass completion with 81 passes. So he keeps it going. But I think you say that. I think in the Championship we'll get away with not having him, to be honest with you. So it's okay. I think in the Premier League that would definitely be true. And he might look at another player coming in. Like people have talked about Sammy Braybrook maybe being developed with an eye to be like his understudy for that role. But for example, I'd say, especially against those teams that park the bus against us, I think against Stoke, for example, Yannick Vestergaard was playing more the Harry Winks role than Harry Winks, even though Harry Winks had a great game. And that wasn't his fault. It's just because, again, they're sitting so deep that all the players need to be good on the ball. That's the Enzo style. You've got to have people that are really accomplished passers and can see the spaces and the gaps and are intelligent. But yeah, he's been brilliant. He's played great every single game. You mentioned his quote right at the top of the show as well. You can see even the evolution in his game too. Like Spurs fans said that like one reason why he sort of started falling out of favour is that he just always passed it sideways and back. He wasn't that willing to kind of like play the forward pass. Whereas I've noticed with Leicester that what tends to happen a lot is that when he passes it forwards, the entire move starts. So him and Ricardo kind of bounce it side to side, but he's the one that says, okay, now we go. And it's almost like the entire team are looking at his trigger to be like, okay, if Captain Harry says it's time to attack, we all move up the pitch together and start taking them out. I don't know if that's deliberate or not, but it does do that. I've seen someone go in and share that comment that just did there with like people running past him. Yeah. That's maybe fair, but I think that's not his fault per se. I think that's the style of play, right? Is that everyone's there. So, I mean, that's how you beat Leicester. We've said that before, is that if you rob the ball from Ricardo or Harry Winks, then you can put a situation where a quick through ball is going to expose the high line and you can get the ball in behind. That's literally the recipe. Like, we're lucky that in this division, there's not that many teams that have fast forwards and not that many teams that have a player that can win the ball and play it through to the fast forward and finish. But the Premier League, they all have that. They all have that ability. So that's going to be a problem for them.
But that's as well having 3 defenders at the back, 2 of them which are quick, which can make up for that. So Enzo's obviously thought of that. And I think against Preston, I can't remember who was mentioned, it was Matt Piper or it was Enzo, was mentioning that they sat somebody on Harry Winks the entire time to go, right, we're going to try and realise that everything goes through this guy. Have a man on him that's more physical, that's just going to cut out the game, and we still managed to get the ball to him and also out wide. So even though it does start with him, there are other ways. It's not like that only one way of playing. We can play it to multiple people. We can play it around players. We can play it again, as you're mentioning, to Yannick Vestergaard, who can spread that same pass as well. So it's not just like before when Yuri Tillemans was playing, it was all through him. And when you cut him out, I remember specifically around Roma, where Zanolio, I've got his name, has joined Aston Villa now, man-marked Tillemans, and we had no plan B. We had nothing else because there was no other way around it. And we just looked slow and lackadaisical. And every time Yuri Tillemans got the ball, he was pushed off. He was like, no, give me the ball. I'm going to grab it off him. So even then, in that comparison, there's other ways of playing. There's other backup options. There's other plan Bs, which I think people aren't seeing as much in the team. So even though Harry Winks is great, and yes, he has like that physicality, we can make it with other ways, with the way that Enzo's kind of thought of the second and what other ways we can counteract that.
Spot on. That's a great analysis there, Neil. I got a lot of comments coming in, guys. I'm trying my best. A lot of us are excited, wanted to get our opinions across. There's a lot of comments to get through. I'll try and pull them up as we go. Guys, first of all, before I let you go later, what do you think of, you just touched on, we would be punished a lot more, playing the way we do, especially if we're in the Premier League against some of these top sides. How much do you think that under Enzo, and if we were to, strengthen our squad in January and we were to hypothetically go up, first time of asking, how much can you see us being successful against some of the bigger clubs in the top 6?
I don't know. I'm going to firmly sit on the fence here because I feel like it's too.
It is too early. I know. Sorry.
It's too early to say because we don't know what our defence is going to look like next year. Because we're waxing lyrical about Vestergaard at the moment. He could well not start next season. Callum Doyle, Manchester City could say, no, you can't buy him permanently. So it's so hard to say. But what we can say is we've got to build the foundations this year and keep improving throughout. And again, I think we're talking about running before we've even taken our first step.
Oh, no, you're right. I'm just excited, guys. After the season I've had, I'll take it. I've had nothing to do but to look down for a long time, and now I've got nothing to do but look up, so it's been brilliant. Thoughts on Vardy longevity? I think this would be his last season, and I think, go out on top and go out in a high, but if he was to manage to, score 15, 20 goals, maybe they give him another year. I don't know. What do you think, Anil? Do you think Vardy's his last year?
Yeah, I think someone said that it feels like it's his farewell tour, that he's trying to shithouse every single fan when he scores against them and have that before he goes. And I think for his own sake, Premier League's pretty tough. For his own good, it'd be better for him probably not to play the Premier League and to kind of sully it. So he's an all-time legend, the best player we've seen, and not just for his ability on the pitch, but his personality, I think, is really the real reason people fell in love with him. I could definitely see him they probably will offer him a contract. I feel that Leicester are one of those clubs that, if something's going wrong, they just give Jamie Vardy a new contract because they think all the fans are going to be like, yeah, Vardy signed up, and they do it to numb the pain a little bit. But the thing is that, it actually is more painful for us to see a struggling Jamie Vardy, which we saw at times last season, because you don't want to kind of lose that memory. Do you know, it's a bit like if a older relative of yours gets Alzheimer's or something like that, and they're not the person that you remember, and you don't want to lose those fond memories. Yeah, maybe that's a bad analogy. That is something that's happened to me. But yeah, I wouldn't want that, really. I'd rather remember Vardy as being an all-time GOAT and legend rather than seeing him slightly struggle. But if he wants to stay, he's also a player that they will obviously let him do it. It's up to him, though. Does he want to come on and play 10 substitute appearances next season, or does he want to be the main man? Although it is interesting that I feel that he shows again that he's got so much to his game that it's not just that he doesn't even use pace in behind anymore. Now he's linking the play and he's just getting on the end of it, and he's a fox in the box. They've said him, Enzo said quite a few times ago, he's in the box, I can't teach him anything. He knows more than I know. What can I teach him? So I can only tell him about the rest of the game, and he still got it. A good scorer. So, I don't think he will, at most, though, like next season would be his absolute last for Leicester if he was here, but I don't think he will be.
Fair play. Neil, Scott's asked you a question here. Neil, you mentioned about your Tillemans. There are a lot of rumours I've seen about him being unhappy. Would any of you want him back? Just before you answer this, me, a strong no, because he left on a free. He thought he was bigger than he was, and that's my answer. Neil, would you have Yuri Tillemans back?
No, because Harry Winks is better in this role, in this position. This is the role that kind of that Brendan Rodgers wanted to play, but I prefer Winks. The only way he comes back to the squad is if he's second back up to Winks. I think he's too similar. We need another player that's a little bit more physical, that offers something a little bit different. And I think Yuri Tillemans kind of made his bed. And thank you for the memories that he's had. He didn't end the season in the right way, but he'll still be remembered for me for his FA Cup goal. And I think he tried to do what he's done now, and he's gone to Villa. It's not worked out. I don't think you really can't think of a player. The last player that I think that we took back, going back years ago, was Paul Dickoff. That's the last player I remember that played for the club twice, years ago. But no, I wouldn't really take him back, because also we completely transformed the squad. Is he somebody that Enzo wants? I don't think Enzo wants him, to be honest with you. Again, I'm talking on behalf of him, but I don't think Enzo would really want him.
Where does he fit in this system? Like, every player in this system is mobile, can get about the pitch, and can do the hard yards in pressing. Tielemans can't. Also, can I just say, Neil made such a good point. He's made his bed. He made it clear. He had 2 years of a contract on the table. He's made his choice. Thank you for the memories. Thank you for the FA Cup final goal. Thank you for the season before last. But let's leave that in the past. You chose to walk out from the club, and that cost the club millions. Don't now come crawling back. Now it hasn't worked.
Yeah, I think the club wouldn't do it for that reason, that they would do it as a matter of principle. But I actually could see him in the team as one of those eights. I know people say that he hasn't got the energy and stuff like that, but that's not strictly true. If you look at the statistics, he was still one of the hardest runners in the Leicester team. It's just he's got this appearance where he looks like he's lazier than he is. And also he does get pushed off the ball and stuff like that. But statistically, he could do a role like that. He played in a kind of 2-8 system when Brendan first took over, if you remember him and Maddison. I'm not saying I would have him, but I'm just saying that the league is a funny old place. And if there's let's just say it's getting towards transfer deadline day next season, and Villa say, yeah, we'll let you have Yuri on loan for the season, and there's no wages that you have to do other than some kind of loan fee. I've seen stranger things happen in the world of football, is what I'm saying. But I personally wouldn't want to see it, but I could see it.
That's the thing. Objectively, you're right. Yeah, I don't think in principle it's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, that's why I think it wouldn't. But
Also, just a quick point as well. You said about him when he played as about 8 under Brendan Rodgers. He also had Ndidi behind him doing a lot of the sort of covering work and a lot of that. And if I'm honest, I didn't look at the numbers of how much players ran last year, because it was depressing me after about 2 months.
Still, comparatively, Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall still outrun everyone by at least a kilometre and a mile even every game, which is absurd. Yeah. But that's because, he used to be like a county runner. I don't know if you know this. He literally could have, instead of being a footballer, probably been like a professional athlete on a... I'm not saying he'd have won medals or anything like that, because you got people that can run the marathon in 2 hours, which is absolutely ludicrous. But he has got almost like an ungodly gift for stamina that you shouldn't really have. He's basically got 3 lungs, is what I can tell.
He's a beast. Actually, that's something, thank you. You just reminded me of something. He is a beast, right? I just wanted to, I'll ask all 3 of you this, and if this is just a stupid Australian opinion, then please let me know. I won't be upset. But in my opinion, sometimes what frustrates me about Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall is he looks poor in terms of he does not look confident using his right foot at all. And sometimes I think he holds the ball too long because he's looking for that option on his left. And when it's not there, he gets caught out and dispossessed. I don't know if that's a bad analysis on what you guys think of it, but that's something that's glaringly obvious to me every time I watch him play.
He seems like, as well, though, that's becoming less and less of an issue. Last year, it was painful to the point he was doing it. This year, and I don't know if it's because he's not being pressured as much, because in the Premier League, he had a lot less time on the ball than he does in the Championship in terms of when he's on the ball, there's always instantly someone on him. In the Championship, there's not that many people pressing him. But it does feel like it's not as much of an issue as it was before. But again, I don't know if that's a drop off in standard in opposition, or you've actually just got to give Dewsbury Hall some credit and say, yeah, you've improved that area.
It does help with him dropping down a division as well, giving him more time to experiment with this new position. I think he's been good. And the thing is, he's 25 at the age where I think he'll stay with Leicester City. You know, the same way that Hamza is still there's still some development to do. Still a really good player in there. Is he going to be starting week in, week out in the Premiership? I don't think so. I think we'll get another person in position where when we go back. But he's a good squad rotation player, and what he's going to give the team is going to be very good. At times, his finishing has been lackadaisical because he's been running so much. But with Enzo, I trust that they can get the best out of him.
James McAtee will so blatantly end up at Leicester next season. I think is written in the stars. Left-footed, plays an attacking midfielder, number 8. Played with Enzo Maresca before. Currently plays for Sheffield United. They're going to get relegated. Yep. Under 21 international English. You heard it here first. You're going to see him.
It's actually something I've said on one of my streams before, but it's also the principle of the fact he chose Sheffield United over Leicester when everything was agreed here as well. Do you reckon that the club might be?
Well, Neil might know more about this than I do, but I believe the reason why he had agreed to come here is the role he was going to take was Kiernan Dewsbury Hall's. So what I believe happened is that Bayern Munich were going to sign João Palhinha from Fulham, and Fulham were going to sign Kiernan Dewsbury Hall from Leicester, and Leicester were going to sign James McAtee from Man City, and that was the chain of transfers. And because it all broke down at the very top, that's why it didn't happen. That's the sources that I've got. Neil, you've got way more sources in the club, so I don't think that will be an issue. I think, to be fair, Enzo probably wanted him regardless. He's like, fuck it, I know how good James McAtee is. So even if we've got a collection of wingers, we've got a collection of cams as well, I'll find a way for it to work. But I think that's the reason. And I don't think the club would look at it negatively, because I think the reason he chose to make that move is he helped Sheffield United get promoted last season, and he felt some affinity for the club. And I actually think that if they get relegated, their fans will not hold it against him. They'll think that, well, he could have chosen to go somewhere else and he stuck it out with us. And okay, we weren't good enough to stay up. And now he wants to stay in the Premier League. He seems like a pretty professional player to me. If you know more than me, but I have that on quite good authority, because I know that basically the big thing is that there's literally pictures of him at at Seagrave. So that's why it's known it was something was going on there. Yeah.
Didn't they do the media stuff with him as well?
Really, it got that far. Well, but like I say, I mean, Palhinha was in the Bayern Munich dressing room. He had the shirt holding it, and they pulled it at the last second. So what happened there? I don't know. Maybe it'd be hilarious if that move broke down because of James McAtee, because he chose Sheffield United.
It's mad, isn't it? Like, the way football world is, one domino can affect like what happens at like the biggest clubs in the world with Bayern Munich. Little old Leicester still disturbing.
I think next year we potentially get in. McAtee is one of them. I think Harwood Bellis comes into the team, and I think was it not Luke Thomas? Callum Doyle comes into the team as well. Don't have it on the specific authority, but I think them three come into that first team.
But Southampton signed Harwood Bellis permanently.
Was it permanent?
I thought it was
one second.
I thought it was on loan, no?
If he makes a certain amount of appearances, they have to sign him, and I think they intend to do it. Yeah.
Wasn't it that? And you could well know more than me. Wasn't it if they make a certain amount of appearances and get promoted? I thought it was they had to get promoted as well.
Let's see if I can find it. But I mean, anything's possible. But I believe that they got him, and it's quite a long thing, you know.
So just quickly, Neil, I've just got your message, mate. Do you need to shoot, do you?
I've got to head off in just a bit. Right. But I've got 2 minutes, mate.
2 minutes.
Okay, you are right, Ant. Yes, if they get promoted, this obligations. If they don't get promoted, he could still be around. It's 20 million though. That is quite a lot. Maybe that's the reason why Burnley didn't sign him either.
Yeah, I just clicked on something that said, and I thought it was going to tell me what about Harwood Bellis, and it goes, how much? And the quote, the headline is, "How much does Harwood Bellis earn?" And I opened it, and it just says more than you. That is just like,
oh, that's rough. Oh, look, guys, I could talk to you for hours on end. I do have to split soon. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. Neil, I'll come to you first, mate. You want to shout out your socials and tell everyone they can find you?
Yeah, just beyond the 90 LCFC. But yeah, thanks for having me on, man. It's been good chat.
Honestly, Neil, mate, I really appreciate. In fact, I appreciate all of you guys. You know, I've looked up to you. I've watched you for a long time before I had the balls to start a channel, and I really appreciate. We touched on the camaraderie and the smaller clubs, and it's brilliant. And I enjoy your content. And thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it, Neil.
No worries, man. No worries. Thanks for having me on.
And Ant, you want to? Everyone here is probably Ant's followers anyway. But Ant, mate, you want to shout out your socials anyway, just in case?
So Ant's Leicester fan channel. Again, I'm hopefully starting a FIFA career mode on that in the today, which should be. I don't want to say fun because I really don't enjoy FIFA at the moment, but it should be entertaining for you guys to watch. But match previews, match reactions, match day vlogs, transfer live streams, trying to do more and more content. So guys, do come and give a subscribe. Also, we're hoping, I think I'm all right to say this, Luke, but we're hoping to try and get something going more on my channel as well.
Absolutely, mate. I will always get up. You know, if it's an early game and I'm not doing something on LTID TV, shout out to them, by the way. Awesome, great content creators also. I would love to come on. I feel like I've been hassling, especially poor Anil here. I've been begging him to come on for a week. I thought he was going to hate me. Mate, you need your own channel. I think everything you say is brilliant. And when I hear you talk, I get motivated and hyped up to watch the next game, mate. So credit to you, mate.
I'm just that guy that you turn up at the pub and like, who invited Anil? Why is he here? No one knows. But you're like, fuck it, as he's here, you might as well come out for a night out with the lads. So that's what I do.
Go on, lad. Right, Neil, you don't like shouting out your socials, really, do you? You want to drop your Twitter? You haven't got a Twitter?
You can follow me if you want, but when you think it's got nothing to do with football, you'll struggle to understand what's going on. So, you know, it's up to you if you want to do that. I have another life outside of my following the Foxes, although you probably wouldn't guess it based on the amount of times I turn up on these channels. So there you go.
Oh, go on, mate. You can shout it out if you want, mate.
No, it's there. I mean, I'm not too bothered. Maybe one day I will start a channel or something like that. We'll see.
All right. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming. I had a great time. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to the next one. All right, guys. I'll see you next time.